Greetings, my name is Fatina Aisha, and I will be talking a little bit about the summary of the Masque of the Red Death. So, the Masque of the Red Death is a short story about a country that is currently suffering from a plague called the Red Death. So, the plague is said to be incredibly fatal, and despite the fact that it has taken the lives of almost half of the people, the Prince Prospero, remains unbothered. He does not care. And instead of caring about his people, the prince has gathered 1,000 of nobles and isolate themselves in one of his abbeys or castles. So the design of the castle is quite strange because it has 7 rooms and with different window stain colors like blue, purple, green, orange, white, violet, and black. So with all of the entertainments they could get their hands on, they party inside of the castle for the whole 6 months. And one day at the masquerade, while the people are enjoying themselves, they are interrupted by the chimes of the ebony clock. Musicians and the people went quiet as they listened to the sound, because somehow it reminds them that their time is almost up. But after the chiming stopped, they continue partying and dancing as usual. But suddenly a masked figure shows up, and it actually offends Prince Prospero because of the outrageous costume he was wearing. He was wearing like a costume that is not appropriate with the theme of the masquerade. But yes, and after that the prince goes after the figure with a dagger to the black room. But as the figure turned around to face the prince suddenly drops dead, and everybody is in horror when they find out that there is actually no one behind the mask, and so everyone else die one by one.
My name is Intan Nursifwato. I'm Intan Maspandi, and I'm presenting on the themes in the story The Masque of the Red Death. In this story, the major theme of the whole story plot is the inevitability of death. Poe is trying to remind readers about death from the start of the story until the end, using words and our imaginations. He used words like fatal, blood, dissolution, scarlet, despairing posture, and etc. Even when the narrator is describing the party that Prince Prospero was throwing, it all comes back to death when the ebony clock is mentioned. The ebony clock reminds readers and the guests, even Prince Prospero himself, about the time they have left to live. And the story is all about what Poe tried to achieve. He wants people, the readers, to know that no creature can avoid death the moment it comes. Even though Prince Prospero and his guests think that they could hide from the Red Death by escaping and hiding behind the walls of his castellated abbey. They partied for almost 6 months, believing that the Red Death would not come for them. But by the end of it, that Red Death finally visited them. When the Red Death found them, Prince Prospero did not even realize that in the beginning. He was yelling, he was telling people to take strangers marched off to see who was the one that come without invitation and ruined his party. When the Red Death reveals itself, it was too late and Prince Prospero died at that moment, followed by his guests and all the people in the castle. The second theme in the story is about class conflict. Prince Prospero and his guests, who are the nobilities in the country, escaped from the plague called the Red Death into his Castelletto Abbey. Instead of helping, they abandoned the lower class citizens. They let the citizens to die. This shows the prince's selfishness and failure to take care of his own people. Even though that was not directly mentioned by Poe, you can see the prince's attitude through the narrator's description. In paragraph 2, the narrator said the external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was fool to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. That shows how he, the prince, could care less about the people outside and just care about himself and the guests by partying for almost 6 months. The party ends when the Red Death arrive in the middle of their party. That suggests that wealth cannot protect people from death.
My name is Wang Zixuan. I will introduce the character in the Masque of Red Death. The only character whose names appeared in the story is the Prince Prospero, an anti-hero character. He is the prince of the country, faces the pansy and the outbreaks of Red Death is no help at all. He is also a timid and incompetent ordinary man who will only run away. His names mean prosperity, which stands for happiness and good luck, but ironically, this is no case. He invented a source of his strong and brave friends to stay with him in one of his castles to avoid the Red Death. A few months later, he created a bizarre dance party to his own thesis. He wanted to use happiness to keep the threat of death from the high wall. In order to participate in the fancy dress ball, the prince carefully selected clothes and marks for his courtiers, but those clothes are like nightmares. Render a terrifying atmosphere. The 7 rooms he dressed made the entire castle horrible and eerie. The first room, the first 6 rooms are blue, purple, green, yellow, white, and violet, but the 7th room is black with a red window. Color is symbol of life, but the red and black pattern dies. The 6 vibrant rooms contrast sharply with the final scarlet and a black one. The Gomri entertaining room with its heavy tone accentuates the horrible and desperate atmosphere sets the beginning of the article, indicating that death will begin here. They are all prince-like, but when the Red Death appeared, Prince Prospero was filled with fear, disgust, the angry in fact, the change in Prospero emotion reflects people compare feelings about death. The prince is the static character. There is no major change in the room, from the beginning of the party to the final fear and dice. Everything is in the sense, as the reader imagines. And the second character is the stranger. As the clock, clock struck midnight, a man disguised as a pension appeared at the party. It caused great panic among the people. In the end, people catch the man and discover that there were no entity under the mask of the Red Death. It shows that the Red Death mark in itself is an imagined constructed by people's fear.
And the first symbol is the unexpected guest. The unexpected guest in the short story, it symbolized the death and also the red death, which is the disease. And in the story, Prince Prospero was trying to avoid this disease by shutting himself in the abbey along with thousands of his favorite knights and ladies. But their plan was doomed because at the end, the Red Death shows up at the masquerade ball and kill everyone, including Prince Prospero. The next symbols is the clock. So this big ebony clock in the short story symbolizes how death is getting closer and closer throughout the story. The guests may feel safe in the abbey, but when the clock strikes, all the music and dance was stopped for a short while, and the guest faces was pale and they're nervously laughing because the clock remind them of the horrible and terrifying things that was happening on the outside, and it also remind them that death is approaching. Plus, this big ebony clock was also located at the black room, which contained no light and also symbolized death. The last symbol is the seventh room. So the seventh room in the Masque of the Red Death symbolize the different stages in life. And the first room is located at the east side of the castle, which is where the sun rises. This room symbolizes the beginning of life. And the last room, located at the western side of the castle, and also where the sunset, this room symbolizes the end of life. And the fifth room that was between the first and the last room, this symbolizes the stages of life where we start to grow. And all the seven room was decorated with different color, represent different stages of life. And the first room, which is the room that was located at the east, the first room is blue, the blue room, and it symbolizes, as I said, the birth and the beginning of life. And the second room is the purple, which is the combination between blue and red, and it also symbolizes the beginning of growth. And the third room is green, which is symbolize the spring of life or youth. The fourth room is orange, which symbolize the autumn of life.
My name is Nuruliana binti Zamri, and I will continue the presentation about point of view. So in this story, it is a shift from third person view to the first person view. For the first one, from the story, we clearly can see that it is third person view because the narrator describe everything that is seen in the story, and we as a reader receive full description about the story. For example, the 7 chambers that Prince Prospero created to avoid the plague. The 7 chambers contain 7 different color and 7 different meaning. And for the next one, first person view, which means that we see the story from the eye of the character. So in this story, it is from the perspective the character, the Red Death. He talk about life and death, and he portray himself as a horrified figure that make people scared, make people run away from him. In addition, it also limited omniscience, where the narrator know about others' character. The narrator can go into the character's mind and see their perspective and their point of view. For example, we know that those people actually are in a scared situation because the deaths are actually chasing for him, turn them into powerless and can't do anything, including the Prince Prospero. So I will continue to the next slide, which is moral of the story. So for the first one, the king of kingdoms need to take care for his people. As a king, he need to be responsible to lead his people, to take care of his people. So in this story, King Prospero take measure to stop the Red Death by creating a place for his people to stay, as they are facing a plague where the disease spread very rapidly that one person will die immediately within 30 minutes after he get infected. Using all the power that Prince Prospero have, he create a place full of entertainment that will make his people forget about what is actually coming after them. So the next one is we cannot escape death as it is part of human nature, and it is also a human fate that we cannot defy. So in this story, even though Prince Prospero prepared a luxury place to save himself, to save his people, but it is still unsuccessful because it is the end of everyone's life, which is death. We cannot avoid it, we cannot deny, we cannot even say no. There is no delay in it, we must accept it. So at the end of the story, when the horrified figure, which is the Red Death, appear, everyone are trembling in fear and immediately die, suffering. So we can see that even Prince Prospero, who have the power, does not make him immune to fight the Red Death. He at the end he died and he lost to the Red Death.
Next, I will be explaining about the Gothic elements in the Masque of the Red Death. So there are two Gothic elements in the story. The first one is mystery and fear, and the second one is atmosphere and setting. So I will be explaining the mystery and fear one first. So mystery and fear is one of the crucial elements in Gothic horror story, because it contributes to the feeling of horror and fear experienced by the character in the story and also us as the reader. So Poe creates mystery by bringing in the appearance of the masked figure as a mysterious person. The figure is mysterious because the people at the party cannot see its face and do not know what the figure was doing there. So all of this has brought fear upon the people at the party, and they even went as far as assuming that the figure is the infamous Red Death. This is stated in the line, but the murmur had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. So all of this shows that the people are scared and they fear something mysterious, something mystery, and in this case they fear the unknown figure. So the next one is atmosphere and setting. Atmosphere and setting is also important element in Gothic horror story because it contributes to the feeling of fear and also uneasiness of the character and also the reader. So as we all know, the story is set at a castle, and the setting is very gloomy because of all the death from the plague, and also there was no light in the castle. It is stated in the story in line, there was no light of any kind emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. So their only source of light was raised through the colored glass from the fire. So this shows that the atmosphere, the setting is very dark, very gloomy, and there are a sense of entrapment from being inside of the castle.